Nothing happening here. Okay. All right. Looks like I'm live. Hello, hello. Aiman here. Just trying to get through some technical difficulties. I have been streaming for several months now, so bear with me for just a minute as I make sure everything's working properly. I see it's live on Twitch. Let's just check it out on ZBrush Live and on Facebook to make sure it's all working. Okay, let's try and add YouTube. Pixologic Live. Very strange. I can only seem to see myself on Twitch, and I'm not seeing anything on ZBrush Live or YouTube or Facebook. So usually I like to make sure that it's actually working live before I launch into things. Right, here we go. ZBrush Live seems to be active now as well. Apologies for the delay, everyone. Okay, I can see myself on ZBrush Live and Twitch. And let's make sure of YouTube as well if we can. All right, there we go. Okay, let's cancel the background audio. And let's make sure music is delivering as well. Looks like system audio isn't getting to you guys. So let me just adjust my settings on OBS. From there to there. Okay. Let's give that a shot again. Alright, still doesn't look like the audio is getting through to you, at least from the system audio, and I want to make sure it does. So there's audio input. Let's try that. Nope, does not look like the music is coming through at all. Because I would have heard it by now on the live feedback. Let's remove this. Let's create another audio input capture. Call that music. It can't be an input capture, it has to be an output capture. Let's try just default settings and see if that does the trick. Okay. Kind of hard to tell with ambient settings actually if that would work. Ambient music. Because ambient music has a bit of repeating to it anyway. Okay, let's try that one now. You can hear a little bit of my dog growling and barking, but not the music output from the computer just yet. I'm going to troubleshoot for a few more minutes, and then we'll get started. I see everyone in the chat windows. Give me just a few more minutes to sort out these technical issues, and then we'll get cracking. It doesn't look like we're going to get through it right now, guys. I'm just going to get started and without any system audio feedback for you. At least we have the webcam and we have live stream. Let's see here. It's really strange. So basically what I'm using right here is OBS. It's a streaming software, and you can choose the input sources and stream. That's what we use here for the ZBrush live streams. And I've done the audio input capture, which is what I'm using, my webcam, and the audio output capture. Let's see. Is this one, the desktop audio? I'm going to remove that and try one more time. Do an audio output capture. Let's see if there's anything else. Video capture, window capture. No, it has to be audio output capture. And we'll say music. And we tried default, and I've tried all of these various settings. It's definitely not going to be my Oculus. And my speakers didn't work. Let's try just NVIDIA audio. Okay. All right. I'm going to troubleshoot this later. Let's get cracking on today's ZBrush Live. Okay. Okay. So, my name is Aiman Akhtar. Thanks for joining, everyone. This is 3D printing and ZBrush, ideas to reality. So if you scroll down in the ZBrush Live presenters, you'll see my name, Aiman Akhtar. And you can go to the past broadcasts and schedules. Move this window down a bit. All right. And over here, you can see a little bit about me. You can see some of my prior work and all the previous live streams. So I'm up to 54 live streams, but I've been taking a break for about 3 or 4 or 5 months, which is why I'm having the technical difficulties right now. We're going to just kind of pick up where I left off. So I've been doing a lot of 3D printing for toys, articulation, games, concept art. So I'll talk a little bit about myself, and then we'll jump into why we're here today. So I've got the chat here with you guys. Hey everyone, Aiman here. So I'm monitoring the chat on Restream Live, so if you guys have any questions or want me to talk about anything specific, just drop it in Restream and I will, or Twitch, YouTube, whatever, I'm getting it all and I will respond ASAP. All right, so if you want to see previous videos, you can go to ZBrush Live Presenters under Aiman Akhtar. Checking up on Twitch, checking up on YouTube, and checking up on ZBrush. All right. My own website is aiman3d.com, so you can see some of the 3D printing projects I've been involved in there, and most will be under the Sculpture tab. Internet is running really slow right now. Not sure why. Possibly because I've got so many tabs open. Let's pause all of these. Just they're not eating so much energy. There we go. All right, so 3D printing for toys, for wearables, costumes, large-scale sculptures, concept art maquettes, that's my bag. Based on those things, I set up a website of my own business, 3dsmiths.com, and I work with people that email me, they send me their ideas, mostly 2D sketches, and I translate them into 3D sculptures and make 3D prints out of them. So you can see some of the work over here. That's 3dsmiths.com. Most of what's been taking up my time these days is my own IP, Fungusaurs. You may be actually able to see a lot of it in the webcam. It's right there. This is my office at a studio in LA, private studio, where I do a lot of my prototyping. And most of the work I've been prototyping is about Fungusaurs. We're trying to build this IP. So little dinosaur mushroom hybrids. And what we've done over the past 3 years or so that we've been working on this project is we did a Kickstarter, mass-produced a whole bunch of toys, and now we just launched our augmented reality mobile game. So whichever toy you get, you can show that out. Whichever toy you get in the mystery box, you can bring it to life using cutting-edge augmented reality object tracking and scanning. So I used ZBrush to make all the models that I 3D printed and prototyped on my Form 2s back there. After I 3D print prototyped them, painted them, we used those same prints and 3D models to mass produce the toys. Then we used those same ZBrush made 3D models to a bit more detailed, but to create the topology and the proper animation models that we used in the app. So ZBrush has been a pretty integral part of my process, whether for the toys, whether for the game, animation, all of it. All right, so that's Fungusaurs. You can follow that on Fungusaurs, at Fungusaurs on Instagram. You can see a lot of the various posts that we make trying to build the IP. There's a lot of videos of kids opening our toys, and there's a lot of playing with the app. So that's just kind of a quick primer on what I've been working on for the past 4 or so months. Almost 6 months. Well, years if you count it all. Okay, so that's Fungusaurs on Instagram. The latest thing we're doing actually is because of Black Lives Matter, because it's such an important, relevant cultural milestone for everyone. We're doing a deal where pretty much every Fungusaur toy sold over the next coming week, we're going to donate the proceeds to At the Conscious Kid and Campaign Zero to hopefully address the issue of police brutality and try to educate kids with a bit of racial lens so we create a more informed and better society. So if you ever are interested in buying Fungusaur's toys, I'm not making any money this week at all. We're donating everything. You can get to the shop from the Fungusaur site or the Instagram. All right, one more thing I'm a bit known for. Over the past year or so, I made this brush, the Gumroad brush for keys and articulation, the ZBrush IMM brush, and it's been selling like gangbusters. Every week there's 2 or 3 more purchases, so I thought I'd leave that resource for you. If you Google Gumroad keys and articulation brush, it's only 10 bucks and you get to play with all of the various keys, and I'll show you how to use them, and I've shown you how to use them in some of the previous videos. And lastly, I teach a course called 3D Printing for ZBrush Artists. So that is online, self-paced, 200 bucks at Mold 3D Academy, and you get 8 weeks worth of lessons. So you'll get to learn everything about 3D printing, sculpting in ZBrush, and prepping in ZBrush to get the best 3D prints possible. All right, let me turn the music down for myself. All right, we'll open Restream off to the side here. Got some questions coming in, so I'm just going to answer them as they come in. All right, so a few questions by Santiago Suarez and Comics Legends. Recommendations for 3D printers. What are your thoughts on the Anycubic Photon S? So let's see. Comics Legend is also asking, does my course have lifetime access? I believe the ZBrush live videos are as long as they're, ZBrush wants to host them. And my course on Mold 3D Academy, I believe, has lifetime access. I might even update the videos. So yeah. All right. So about the printer recommendations. So the one question that was asked was about the Anycubic Photon. I believe Anycubic Photon S. So I personally have experience with a lot of 3D printers, and not all of them, but I recommend when you're starting off with 3D printers to get something cheap, something straightforward, something simple, so you can understand what the workload is so that you don't overextend yourself. Both of the printers that I own, the Formlabs Form 2 and the Raise 3D N2 Plus, they're about 3,000, 3,500 range, and I have definitely made my money back because I have a 3D printing related business. For those of you that are just starting out and curious about the hobby, the Anycubic Photon here, looks like the Photon S is about 400 bucks right now, is a great intro to resin 3D printing. This is SLA printing, I believe, or DLP. The main difference is it's just either a laser or a whole projector blasting up that data to cure one layer at a time until you have your sculpt. So that's going to give you a higher resolution print, so you can print miniatures with these, you can print jewelry with this, and it's going to, from what I've heard from everyone that has told me about Anycubic, it works really well and it's worth having. My coworker Elliot has one at home right now and he's using it for all his minis. I have the Formlabs Form 2, and Formlabs did launch their Formlabs Form 3 now, and this is a bit more of a professional grade where you're going past the basic experience understanding of resin to trying to use it for prototyping, for making products for your business. And that comes about 3,500 with all the bells and whistles, probably around 5K or so. And there's a bunch of other resin printers. So you can break down printing into two categories right now that's consumer accessible: resin 3D printers and plastic PLA or FDM 3D printers. So the FDM printers, which actually are probably a better bet to start with, I recently bought a Creality Ender 3, and these are really cheap printers that you can get and start, really small. So they're a couple $100 in the US. They ship out of China, and there's a bunch of stocks here in the US as well. So you can get these pretty quickly. You self-assemble them, so you build it out, and then you do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 tests until you get it running optimally. You can ignore the sale counters. They always have a sale going on, but this is one that I've tried, and it works passingly well, especially if you get a glass bed. The one that I have now is a Raise 3D N2 Plus, which I don't know if they make them anymore, but they make something even bigger called the Raise 3D Pro 2 Plus. And it's a bit more expensive, but that's a small image. It's a bit more expensive, but it's a large printer. So I can actually show you on my webcam here. And pop it over. Actually, it's kind of relevant. I've got a chair next to it, and so you can see how big of a printer it is. You can print 12-inch by 12-inch by 24-inch prints, so you can print very large on a printer like that. So those are my recommendations, basically. There's a whole bunch of 3D printers. Actually, the thing that you probably want to do is go 3D Printer Guide 2020, and I believe CG Hubs makes one. And yeah, just kind of go through the line. I believe it was 3D Hubs Printer Guide. Here we go, Best Printer Guide. So this is from 2019, but it'll give you an idea of how to think about 3D printers. Do you want a professional printer like an Ultimaker, a Formlabs, a Dremel, Markforged, or do you want something a bit easier for home? You know, something to start off with. All right, so I hope that answers that question. Okay, hello from Brazil, hello from, can't tell, but it's in Chinese. Glad to have all of you on here. Okay, so I'm going to just continue on. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Let's close out of that. All that, all that. Don't need that. Need that either. Okay, so what I want to start talking about today is coronavirus, COVID. It's been the main issue that's affected the whole world over the past, I don't know, 6 months now, and it shows no signs of really letting up. So I kind of want to talk about my COVID response when it hit, what happened here in Los Angeles, and let's see here. And what really has continued to develop since then. Okay. So I'll pop open the photos and pictures here. Okay. So what you're looking at is basically what we started doing as soon as COVID hit the States. We started 3D printing masks to donate to area hospitals, and I'm talking about me and Fawn Davis, the owner of the studio I work at here, Fawnco, in Los Angeles. I have my own private office and do my own thing, but when COVID happened, we got the LA quarantine orders and all the non-essential businesses had to shut down. We did. So for a few days we went home, and then all the news stories started coming about how many patients were getting COVID and how the hospitals were becoming overwhelmed and didn't have personal protection equipment. So Fawn and I started coming in, and we have 3D printers, so socially distancing as much as possible. And we just started, going through all the personal protection equipment forums, all the various PPE that people had made and started open sourcing to Thingiverse and other sites online. And we started printing these 3D printed masks. So I don't know how many we printed, like between 50 and 100 or more. And after a few, although then we started seeing more stories about how these hard masks, though they provide a good solution temporarily, if fitted with the filter and the proper, elastic straps to keep it on and secure, hospital workers have to wear these all day long. And even the regular soft masks, when you wear them all day long, it can be, cause a bit of damage. So we wanted to come up with a solution for that. And so we did it, and what you see at the bottom is our first prototypes of a flexible mask. So it's built on the same principles as this one, but I'll talk a bit about how we developed it and how it came to be. Okay. All right, so there's the prototype. What you can see here is really roughly done silicone molds and casts of 3D prints with 3D printed front ends as well. The filter goes in the front from the inside, and then you put it on. And so those are the first prototypes, and then these are the more developed prototypes that we started making and putting out. There's my wife modeling it for us. It's a bit of my personality in it, which is why you see it's a bit of lime green and a smiley face. And the way these masks came to be is actually, they were all done in ZBrush. And I'll show you a bit of how we came to it. So they're skin-safe silicone that you can put directly on your face. It's a bit more comfortable, creates a secure seal, filter in the front with a cap that closes it in. Various product photos that we took. You can sense the scale of it right now there too. And there's a picture of me modeling it as well. So all in all, this took about a couple of weeks. There's my dog Kuma. You can hear him barking and growling time to time. He's right here by my feet. He's a short little corgi. And James from Monster City stepped up. He's runs a shop out of Fresno, and they make James Powell. They make amusement park large-scale sculptures and awesome magic wheelchairs and really large-scale stuff. But when they got the order also to close down because they weren't essential, they pivoted as well to start making face shields. And so you can see James here modeling the face shield. And he contacted me about the masks and said, let's do these masks and let's scale up. And so he took it and ran with it. I'm really happy that something came of these masks. They created a few different versions. They created this lunar black version without the smiley face as well. And they created a, glow-in-the-dark version, which is adorable. And I think that's kind of what I'm really psyched about, is to see this project that started in this very room here about a month and a half ago, and then now it's taken on a life of its own. So these masks are now available at maskandshield.com. This is a site that James put together, and you can see the video of the studio there in Fresno and what they normally do. I'm going to minimize my window there so you can see. So they started doing vacuum form face shields, cutting them out. And if we forward through the video a little bit, you can see how they're doing the masks. So the masks are made out of smooth on, I believe it's dragon skin or something similar, which is a skin-safe material. And they're making lots and lots of them now. They're also, I believe, UV curing them. And so this is a photo shoot they set up maybe a few weeks back. And there's the masks. So the masks are soft, so they can be, worn for a longer period of time. They're also skin safe, and they're dishwasher cleanable, so you can remove the elastic straps, just toss it in the dishwasher, clean it, and then put it back on. So I'm really psyched I was able to do something to help and come up with a solution that we wanted to address and make something happen out of that. So that's maskandshield.com, and I'll drop that in the Restream chat if you want to take a look. All right. Got a question from Dimitri on YouTube, wondering how comfortable is silicone to wear in a hot climate compared to something traditional. It really depends. It's I think it's if you're working like on a farm, like it's really hot. Yeah, silicone's not probably the most comfortable thing to wear, but it's more comfortable than the alternative, and definitely what we were doing when printing the hard surface masks. Now, at least the California governor, they stepped up a lot to, make the face shields, to make masks. So I'm feeling a lot better because when COVID hit, no one was seeming to be doing anything. It was a really scary time where, for weeks there was just this period of hospitals being overwhelmed and, out of PPE, and a lot of nurses and like a lot of people dying, a lot of people that were protecting people trying to get the disease. And so it felt like we needed to step up in a big way. And it wasn't really just me, it's all the 3D artists that I know that have 3D printers were doing something, printing face shields, printing ear savers. I'm sure you've seen the articles of lots of Boy Scouts and, even kids with 3D printers, making lots and lots of ear savers so that uh, it could help people out. And I think that is really telling about society, is if you focus only on the negatives and all what's going on in politics and all the divisiveness that the media tries to convey, you feel really hopeless. But there's always people trying to help, and all the 3D artists that I know, several of them, printed hundreds and up to 500 or more face shields or like ear savers. So yeah, there's a whole community and there's a lot of people helping out. So I'm glad I was able to kind of do a little bit of my part. So on YouTube, Nerb Tukia saying that can't see the masks for kids. Yeah, they don't exist on maskandshield.com. So they only have the masks for adults right now, and that's what I'll be doing today. Is I'll be starting to prototype these masks for kids, and I'll talk to you about how I go about it. Okay, Prashant Subasingh is asking what filter did you end up using? So personally, for the ones that I have here, we just found 3M filters and we just kind of fit them in there. It really is uh, there was a whole filter shortage, so I couldn't make them and start getting them out to people myself because I couldn't get filters, and I didn't want to place orders or try to compete with the various hospitals looking for filters. So I kind of wanted to take a step back and focus on the prototyping side. Luckily, James was able to secure filters. I believe it's called melt blown cloth or something that is a pretty high rating, and they're even submitting the masks to a lab in Utah to get N95 certified rating so that we can get the rating and then get them out to hospitals and fulfill orders on a larger scale. Comics Legend is asking, does my course cover how to create molds for your 3D prints? I go over the basics of mold making in my previous course. That course is about a year or year and a half old now. So it basically teaches you everything I know about 3D printing, but it doesn't cover modern techniques or modern software. So if you want to hold out, I'm going to probably try to make a new course for this fall and update that one. Anyway, so that was kind of the primer on the COVID effort that we started taking on. James made a blue one. If you actually follow Monster City, which you totally should, on Facebook, you can see what they've been up to since then. Working with the mask, they've been making some really fun new alternatives that can be fitted onto the front of the mask. Let's see, so there's they're concept artists, Eric here modeling this. I don't even know what that is. It looks like a little ape demon with like sharp, spiky teeth. You move my little window out of the way. So there we go. So that's one that they've modeled that kind of fits on top of the silicone mask. I think they did one earlier, which is kind of like almost a Predator-esque kind of vibe to it, like a Gnasher or something. Kind of fitted on, because I think once you open up the, having the silicone soft part, that's the part that's up against your skin. You can really have fun and play with the front. So yeah, follow Monster City, and if you're interested in PPE and need to stock up, a lot of people are trying to get back to work now. They sell these awesome face shields that are covered at the top. They even have the kinds that project quite a bit up out in front of your face so that you can fit in a light or tools for dentists, etc. And the masks as well. They're, I believe, going to start scaling up to ship, now. Okay. All right. So what are we talking about today? So I'm going to show you a little bit of how these masks are made and how we came to this solution. Let me pop open the mask itself. Okay, so this is what the mask looks like in ZBrush. Let me make sure that this is all pretty small. And I've got Restream open here on my second monitor so I can answer your chat queries. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this was all sculpted in ZBrush. I have a scan of my head that's accurate scale, and I fitted it based on the actual mask that we had. So I can actually open up a previous model and see if that has all the previous files that I built from. And I did a lot of prototyping to try out various different ideas actually. Turn everything off. Okay, so this is the 3D printed mask that we started from. This is, I can't remember the name of the studio that built it, but it was a studio in Spain that built it and offered it up for free on the open source COVID forums. And there's 2 or 3 different variations of this mask, but all of them have this kind of internal I don't know what to call it. It's basically just a grid that holds the filter in place on the inside, as well as some of the newer ones have a grid that holds in from the outside as well. I'm not sure if I have that around here. But yeah, the first thing I did was, okay, this mask is not that appealing. It's a bit scary with all the grids and everything on at the end. So let's try to simplify and just soften it out. So we created this soft version. So just smooth before we even cleaned out the front. Then I moved the little tabs all the way to the back end because we're like, let's actually make these tabs part of it. And I tried, okay, let's try to get the grills, get a bit more airflow and have these multiple grills instead of one grill. So I kind of cut that out of a circle and used a circle to cut out from that piece. Like basically, I'll show you how I did it. You can Boolean in ZBrush. So if you go under Render, Booleans, and turn on Live Boolean, all the subtools that you stack, you can live move them around and see how they're working. So you can actually move these pieces and say, no, I want to cut maybe here, I want to cut this, make it smaller. And it's all responds live, so it's pretty dope. And then what is this? I'm trying to remember what I did with all these models from weeks back. Let's open something a bit newer. Let's go to version 5. That was version 2. This might take a while to open because I just kind of kept duplicating subtools and we just kind of amassed a whole bunch of subtools. Give that a sec. Hope everyone's keeping safe out there. I was really conflicted about doing this stream today. I mean, we had discussed this and like arranged it a few weeks back, but with all the Black Lives Matter protests, I feel like I should do something to lend my voice to that cause right now. But I'm going to honor the COVID response stream that I had dedicated this stream to, and we'll come back and do something Black Lives Matter hopefully next week. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's see what we came to. So here's the mask with the tabs moved off to the back. Then once all these pieces are cut out, I don't even know what this one even turned into, because I made so many different variations and iterations. And then I started actually creating molds for the mask. So you can use the same Boolean principle to create a negative. And that's the mold for the original negative mask. So we could, instead of 3D print them, which takes a while, it takes like 4 hours to 3D print them, you could just simply mold and cast them. So here's the shape that I created in ZBrush to do the Boolean cutting from. And you'll see it a bit later in today's stream as I get into it. And here's the back shape. So these two shapes basically are what we use to create the Boolean pieces on the inside. Scroll down to see some of the actual masks. Okay, so this is the first version of the mask that we said, okay, let's simplify, and instead of 3 pieces, let's make it 2 pieces, and try to print the whole thing, make the whole thing out of a flexible silicone material. And so this will be created from the molds, which are here, and the other half is there. So this is the part we actually 3D printed. I believe I hollowed it out in Mesh Mixer and then uploaded it to my Form 2. We printed it in gray resin, filled it with like a solid material, and I can actually show you the prints. Give me a second. Okay, so I'm going to pull my camera here and scale it up a bit. Okay, so here we go. So this is the original 3D print, the first one that we did in order to try to make it work. And if I pop that open, you can see what it looks like. Angle it up a little bit so you can get a sense of it. So the idea was that we're going to pour flexible silicone directly into this from, let's see, where are the holes? From the holes over here. So created a little cap there to inject it into, and so we stick a syringe with the smooth on 2-part solution after it's mixed, and it would go all the way to the bottom of the mold, start from there and kind of fill it in from the inside. And there's a bit of these keys that you can see here, something like this, which kind of goes in and locks it into the other side part. So those are there on all sides. And there's these little tabs on the inside that you can see. And those were designed to kind of come up against each other on either end so that there would be a hole for us to stick the elastic through the mask. And we learned a lot from this first prototype. And see, that's the nature of prototyping. You don't know if it's going to work, so you have to do multiple prototypes. So this was the first prototype, and what we realized a whole bunch of things, but that grill in the front, there's a reason that it doesn't work or make sense to have it be flexible, the whole thing. So I'll show you some of the various prototypes that we did. All right, so this is the first mask. This is the one that we were printing to donate, and the cap in the front comes off, and you put in the filter. There's the cap on the inside as well, the grid, and you pop that on and fit in, kind of click it in place. Put the elastic straps on, and so you can see the fit is actually pretty good. And so that's why we built it off of this kind of approved mask that a few places were working on. So my first iteration of the mask was a solid mask, a bit cleaner and simplified. So instead of 3 pieces, it was a 2-piece mask, just the inside. The grid on the outside was actually part of the mask. And I thought it was just a bit smoother, more appealing, and like cleaner, so that's why I made that one. From there, then we started prototyping the soft masks, which is why we had done the mold here. And so we said, why not take this mask right here, the clean version, and try to make a silicone soft version of that. That's why we did the mold. And very quickly we learned a lot of things. Material matters. So if we use a flexible material that's way too flexible, it rips. The material is, just too comfortable, like it actually squishes into your face. So when you put it on, it kind of, once it's sealed, it just goes like this, and then you can't talk anymore. And we also learned that if we're going to do a flexible version, it has to be longer because if you make it flexible the same way as it would be a hard piece, the flexible piece actually comes into your mouth as you breathe and you can't talk. So we did 3 separate material testing. I think we did 4 or 5 actually later, but we settled on these materials because they're a bit of a harder silicone. They stay in place and they are a lot more comfortable. Also, we realized that we're just cutting the hole out of the front. There was no point in having a grid in the front. It all just kind of falls apart, so you do need the front piece to be solid. Then later, as we kept prototyping, we realized having these tabs along the sides we thought would be enough for the elastic to pull through. But what was happening was once you put elastic through it and you pull, it basically pulls only that part and it doesn't pull the whole mask. Someone's asking, Tim the Ancient, do you remember what the shore hardness, the silicone is that you stuck with? Yeah. So we started with the shore hardness of, I believe, 2, and then 10, and then 20, and 25. And then we decided 20 was basically the hardness that we wanted. Shore hardness basically means density in a sense, so that it's not going to stretch way too thin and deform. 2 was deforming a lot. I believe this first one that we did was something like a 2, and you can see it's super stretchy, and you don't want it that stretchy. So the end result, we iterated, and I'll kind of show you back in ZBrush how it went as we learned that this wasn't going to work because this whole front grill, if it's flexible, it kind of wiggles, and so it would let bigger particles in because the whole grill would wiggle, so that part can't be soft. So the next mold that we made, you see that's actually still the first one. Here we go. So we started coming up with the idea of what if the grill was a hard piece that fit into the front and it kind of bent into place. And so we said, all right, why not print this in PLA, just something like out of an FDM printer, something that's hard, and create ridges like this so that it could be rotated into place, and that's what you would run the straps through. It would solve both of our problems with our previous mask design. One, the elastic straps pulling and being uncomfortable, and 2, the grill in the front just being too flimsy. So we thought this would be a good solution. Didn't end up working. These legs kind of just snap off. No matter the few iterations that I made, it just wasn't working. So started over. This is the round 2 or 3 or 4. We decided let's simplify. This is all we need for the silicone piece, and maybe the straps can be just part of the front, and we don't need any straps in the mold to complicate the mold. So on top of that, then started thinking about new ways to do the straps and said, what if the straps were part of the front piece? And came up with this really clean, simple design. So the silicone piece is easily detachable. It can be washed, cleaned, and the straps would hold it into place from here. After testing this, we realized, yeah, this works, and it kind of keeps it in place in the front, but if you're only pulling from the front, it collapses into itself because the straps are now too far forward on the face. So all the pressure is coming right from the tip, and there's no pressure along the sides. So it just kind of sinks into your mouth. So that wasn't going to work. But we liked the principle of it, and we liked the front piece a lot. So we decided, so this part is working well. All we need to do is adjust the back part. See if I can turn that piece off. And navigate through this file and find all the right pieces. There's the internal piece. So this is what we settled on, combining all of the previous things that we'd learned. So we're going to keep the straps as part of the silicone piece, but also have straps along the front in the hard piece that the filter is attached into. And we're going to have another hard piece in the back, which is the piece that holds the filter in place. So two hard pieces just in the front and back, and then a silicone soft piece that actually attaches to your head. And we tried a few different iterations of, let's see if I have them around here, the snaps. So there's an insert version that we said, hey, could we increase more airflow by having them be circular? It didn't. You learn a lot just through the process of iteration. So here's the updates on the mold. And I believe that's the final version we settled on, a bit smoother, cleaner. And Boolean that out. So this is kind of what you see as the start of the final mold. Just navigating through this file, trying to see what is worth showing you. Yes, okay, I know what to show. Let's turn everything off. So once the mold's made, you need a way to keep the mold together. So it's not good enough to just have a mold. You need to screw through the ends of the mold, have a nut and bolt that kind of holds it in place and clamps it down. So we decided to come up with these pieces. Let's see. You can see here the experimentation of the various ways to pop the mold open along the side. That's where you kind of would stick a little screwdriver in to pop the mold open. And through there, there's holes for ventilation, the small holes, so that the air actually leaks out the top of the mold, and the larger holes for the screws to actually clamp down and hold it together. And that's one part of the hole that we would shove the material through. So you can see there the screw going in through the top part, coming out of the bottom, and that would be a kind of keyed edge so that it would be specific, so that you wouldn't have to, so the screw wouldn't spin. It would kind of lock into place there. So all that, and what we ended up with, I believe this is the latest one. Yep, this is the latest one. Was this kind of complex looking mold with a lot going on, but really wouldn't have been possible without the prototyping in ZBrush. So that's the one that you see right here. I can pull that up, what it generates. There we go. Okay, so this is kind of the finished silicone soft prototype mask. It's got the elastic bands along the side that can be run like this so that they go onto your ear, or they can be run around the top so that they can be a bit more secure if you're going to wear it all day long. And then there's the filter that fits into the front with the little snap, and then the front piece that snaps into. Kind of demo it out for you. So secure fit all along the way. There's a little bit of air leakage out of the top unless it's like fully secured, and then it kind of works really well because then you can see it actually maybe. You can see how it kind of compresses. You can see how it kind of compresses a bit to keep the shape. And that's what we wanted. That's how you test and make sure that it is actually completely secure. Luciano's asking, what kind of filament did you use to print the mold? So we didn't actually use filament to print the mold. We printed it in liquid resin on the Formlabs Form 2s that you see back there. So this is the second version of the mold. Kind of pop it open. And you can see a lot of damage because this was used to make like a whole bunch of prototypes. But we printed it hollow and very small and shelled it pretty thin. And it was filled with a hard material in Task 8, I believe it was called, in order to make that mold solid, because you don't want to print something this big solid. It's going to cost a lot of money. Resin costs 150 bucks per liter Form to Form 2. So you want to make sure that you print as hollow as possible and then fill it in. So printed in two separate materials. This is white resin and this is gray resin. And that's the final mold that we ended up using for prototype. Since then, I've updated the prototype 3 or 4 more times in order to give it to the Monster City folks in order to basically automate the process a bit. Rather than doing it all by hand, they're trying to get robots to kind of squeeze it down, squeeze the material in, and kind of pop it open. So yeah, that's basically the process of prototyping. Luciano's asking, can I print it on FDM? You could, but there's different challenges with FDM. So FDM is great for printing the front pieces that we were using for the actual hard piece itself and the original 3D printed mask, but FDM leaves a lot of build lines, so you need to sand a lot in order to clean those up before you put the molds. And it's going to be a bit more complicated to with the materials you're using, because FDM as a mold, it might melt if you print it in PLA, because the exothermic chemical reaction of the silicone mold curing creates a lot of heat, so you might warp your print. So that's why we didn't want to do that in FDM. Yeah, keep the questions coming. Happy to answer. Okay, so what happened after we, came to this mold? Is it all good and done now? No, it's not. It's never done. You kind of have to keep iterating until you get it to the people, get it out for the use. So this is the current latest version. So there's the lunar black version of the front piece. And what I want to do now is create a kids version. So for kids, you need a smaller footprint. Their face isn't that big. However, we want the front piece to remain the same. That way we can kind of simplify our process of creation. So what I'm going to do right now is start by taking this large piece and adjusting it without adjusting the internal piece. So what I'll do is duplicate this piece, and I'm going to just kind of work now. I'm going to turn some music on, and you guys can keep asking questions and I'll answer. But the goal now is to turn this into a little bit more kid-friendly version. First, I'm going to print it out as is and then test it on a kid's face to make sure that it actually fits. Then we'll create the negative. But you know what? I think we've got about 50 minutes or so. Let's just see how it goes and how far we can get in this. No, I don't have a legitimate reference mannequin source for youth masks. What I could do is try to go on Thingiverse actually and see if there is a mask for kids. So COVID mask kids and see what comes up. All right, here we go. So there's a COVID mask for kids. There's another one. There's a third one. So you can see a lot of people were doing this. It's not just me, so not special. A lot of people put their time and energy and dedication into making masks that could be 3D printed with a filter insert. What I like about this one is it's actually really clean and simple. You kind of know what you're getting out of it. 3-year-old daughter. That's a bit too small. What I'm trying to do is create a mask for maybe 8, 9-year-olds or something around that range. This is the, there we go, La Factoria 3D. That's the name of the company out of Spain that built the original version and then the 2 or 3 versions since then. So this is the kind of approved version that is still being printed. A bunch of the ones that we did actually ended up going to New York because there's a lot of pressing need there still. And here's a couple of different versions that you can have connectors and stuff. So, a whole bunch of people were doing this. And if you look on open source COVID forums, you'll see all the variations. So Prashant's asking for testing, where would you get a model of a kid? So I'm not going to print a model of a kid or try to find a mannequin of a kid. I'm sure I can find a friend of mine that has a kid. I actually did the COVID test last weekend and tested negative. And I think that's how we're going to move forward as people. We have to do lots and lots of more testing because you want to make sure that you don't have it, because there's a whole 2-week period where you could give it to someone else and not know you have it. So, I'm basically going to wear gloves and a mask. I'll print it. I'll take it off of the printer, put it in a Ziploc bag, and go give it to one of my friends to try it on their kid and give me feedback. But I want to kind of make that prototyping process, take not that long. I want to kind of get it out the door so James can start making the masks. They can do a lot of cool stuff with kids. They can make like colorful swirling options. So with silicone, it opens up possibilities to do that. All right, so going back to Thingiverse, let's see if we can find something made for a kid that is, 8, 9 years old or something. This is interesting, but it looks like it could be basically the same thing for adults. Medium face, larger faces, kids' faces printed at 80 to 85%. So basically what he's saying is this will fit a kid's face if printed at about 80, 85%. That's not really very scientific. Let's check these out. This person looks pretty small. We could kind of just go based off of that. What they did was actually smart in, there's a lot more airflow coming in from the front now, so this makes it a lot easier to breathe. Smart iteration on this design. All right, just reading through. That's actually cool. They made an assembly animation as well. And this is parts that kind of augment an existing 3M mask. So you can see this is a worldwide effort. A whole lot of 3D artists got on board with this. And I guess any of you that are watching, if you get into 3D printing and get, have your own 3D printer, you could, of course, do something like this too. That's really what was awesome about this whole process, was to see everyone kind of step up and do what they could, what little they could, and throw their heads together to come up with, a better way of doing things. As soon as I was done with the mask, I started doing face shields because that's something I can still print to donate. So maybe we'll have time to hit the face shield today as well, the latest face shield. All right, so I don't know, it doesn't really say kids, so I'm just going to skip this idea and start making my own version, and then we'll take it from there. So I'll show you how I'd go about it. So the first thing to do is to go Geometry Dynamesh, and let's just Dynamesh this piece. So this is 128 resolution. That's not nearly enough. Let's go to 500. We're about 500,000 polys, but we're not losing any of the details. So that's kind of what we want. Maybe I'll go up to 600. All right, there we go. Cool, cool. All right, so now that we've got that Dynamesh, we're going to duplicate that. I like to work iteratively, so I have backups of backups of backups. You want to make sure your perspective mode is turned off. Scale this down a bit so you can see more of my UI. All right, so now you want to make sure perspective mode is turned off because that'll ruin how you're able to drag this across. You want to make sure perspective is off when you do. And we want to keep all the front basically the same size so that it works well with the existing piece in the front. I'm going to control tap right there. And I can start using my Wacom pen now. My Cintiq, my tablet here. And control tapping is basically just blurring that edge. You see that edge is just blurring as I control tap. Invert that. So I'm selecting only the part I want. And now I can start to scale. So if I go to my scale, it'll click on right there. And if I click on that little top, I don't know what the heck it's called. It looks kind of like this. The third arrow there. If you click on that, it's going to move your pivot point right to the center of your object. And that's what we want. We want it right in the center of the object. Then we can start scaling down. So that's obviously too much. Let's try scaling down a bit more carefully. And you can see that it's going to create a weird shape. What we want to do is start, okay, when Emmanuel is asking, what is your target poly count before printing? Anything less than 1 million. Really, the reason you want a lower poly count is games. You don't need a low poly count for printing. You need a low poly count sometimes for printing when the USB or the data transfer device to get that code, G-code file from the computer to the printer, that's the limiting factor. So anything around 1 million polys is fine. Okay, so the point is, I can try to use this scale. At least the good thing about scale is it'll keep the proportion intact on this end, and that's helpful. I think that is actually a good size for me to want to test this out. The nature of printing is basically that you need to, how should I say this, print and test it out. Like if you don't print prototype, you can't be sure that it's working. So once I've got I'm going to turn on my local symmetry, turn on my X for press X on my keyboard to activate symmetry, and switch it around. I guess I'm working with Y symmetry. And I'll just move these pieces around. So I'm just using the move tool right now. I'm going to try to get that just right. There's definitely better ways to do it. I could have started with maybe a ZBrush deformer and tried to get the shape a bit closer, but just the amount that I've worked on these masks, I know you have to noodle quite a bit. So I want to start by just noodling. And I'm just using the move tool and then smooth here. And my smooth is set to smooth stronger. For those that don't know where that is, you got to go to Lightbox, you got to go to Brush, and then Smooth Stronger. It's right here. And you double tap that, and it's going to add it in. So every time you press Shift, it's going to switch to Smooth Stronger. Smooth Stronger is great because you can be working millions of polys, and it'll actually still show you some smoothing. whereas that's not often the case. Now we want to make sure, because I just scaled this down uniformly, want to make sure there's enough room for a kid's nose to get in there. And we want to make sure that it kind of seals well on their mouth. So Comics Legends asking, will you replace the out strap since shrinking it down could have reduced the slot openings? That's a good point. Shrinking the straps down from there to there, it's probably made it go from 5mm width to 3mm width. And there is 3mm elastic, so that's one easy solution. We could probably leave the straps as they are and say use 3mm elastic. But just to simplify the workflow, yeah, I might address those as well. I'm going to see, maybe not in this file, but I have another file where I have those straps. I might try to bring those in. Let's navigate around, see if we can find them. All right, so there's some straps there that I could try to bring in and use. Yeah, I think those should do the trick. Maybe something similar to that. Let's see, what is this one? No, that's not going to work. Chris Reyna on YouTube is asking, where can we contact you? Because I'd like to invite you on one of my live streams for ZBrush students. You can contact me at aimanaktar@gmail.com. My info is on, or Instagram really, Aiman3D on Instagram. You can message me on there. You can see priorities right now have all been my Fungisource app that was just launched a couple of weeks ago. So that's what I've been focused on promoting. But if you scroll down a bit more, you can see more of the COVID response stuff that I was working on. So there's the original mask that I was printing. Actually, I should have just shown you these. This would have been a lot simpler, easier show and tell. There's the original iterations in the first mold tests. Then there's the first prototypes of the flexible mask. And there you can see how paranoid we were when we were working here. We were just trying to, before we had a COVID test, we were just trying to wear gloves and masks all the time. So there's the first prototypes. And then that's kind of the finished latest versions that you can find on the Mask and Shield website. And we kept printing the other masks to donate because, you know, we can keep our printers busy. Grant Imahara actually from Mythbusters has a studio down the hall from me, and he lent me his Ultimaker 2 so we could start prototyping face shields. I had a lot of problems with the Ultimaker 2s. I have a problem getting a couple of them running still. So we weren't able to do as much as I wanted to, but that's on me. Grant had his heart in the right place and donated the printers to the cause. Anyway, so yeah, I'm on Instagram at aimanaktar3d, or you can reach me at aimanaktar@gmail.com. All right, back to this. So I'm looking for some straps that I could put into my ZBrush scene at the right space. Let me move it up, move it up, move it up. What is this one? So that's kind of a good one. That's basically a strap that is already in the right place and the right width and height. So I could try to grab that, even if it doesn't look like it's properly positioned. And that's why you want to keep all these previous subtools in your files. It can be really messy when you're trying to show people on a live stream or a class, but it's really good to keep all of your previous iterations of your tools in case you want to build in the future or you have to make adjustments. You can go and grab the pieces that you need. I'm going to go even earlier to this other file, see if they're on here. Nope, nothing there. So I'll have to work with what I've got here. Maybe there's something else that I can find because I've got the COVID mask 1 open and COVID mask 5 and COVID mask 10. So maybe it's something in the middle, 2 or 3 or something. I think this one may do the trick. It's just going to be a bit tricky, but let's see if we can get it to work. I'm going to go into my other scene here, and I'm going to append these in there. And we can move them back. And with our symmetry turned on, we can move them all out. So what I like about this is I'm actually getting the right width of the mask. And that works well for us. The width is there. That's what I need to get the elastic in properly. All right, so I'm going to put that right around, say, there-ish. And I'll fix the inside in a sec. Let's work on the bottom piece. We'll have to move and rotate these to work properly. Rotate a bit more. There we go. Okay, cool. So we've got the straps in place. We can actually rename this to straps, and we can come back to those in a second. First thing we want to do is continue noodling until we fix and refine all of this edge, because we're not going to want that edge in there. So just smoothing, tapping, smoothing. You can also use H polish to hit it, and that's going to quickly try to get things in place. H polish is a really strong brush. And you can even do one thing which I like to do, which is switch your matte caps, because if you've been working too long with the same matte cap, it can cause issues. So even try going to the notorious red wax or something metallic, and you'll see more of the bumps and bruises that you may want to address. With the straps, if we want to get rid of them, we could actually simply just use something like Trim Dynamic and blend them away into the mask itself. But you got to be careful when doing that because you don't want to change the thickness of your piece. There you can see H polish actually is kind of better for that. There we go. So we can kind of get rid of the straps if we want and kind of add them in ourselves. And it's about time I should probably save the scene. Let's call this V11. And I can drop the mask and start trying to refine all of this as well. The first step is to create a working model that we can print, and we like that piece, and we can test the fitment of it and be, okay, this works. And then from there, we can make the mold. All right, got a question here coming in from Hafkreper. No, go for it. That's why I'm here. I actually missed the aspect of answering questions while I was working. That's one good thing you can do from afar when we can't be around each other so much. We can try to stream more. We can try to spread more information, especially if it's capable of doing something good. All right, so your question is, you have an existing model that doesn't fit your print area on your Ender 5. How do I cut that in half and have one piece by two separate pieces? Yeah, I could show you that. That's pretty straightforward. All right, I'm going to finish getting this piece in place first. That's looking clean. Good, good. Also use the H polish. And the best thing about working in 3D really is symmetry. The fact that I can do it on one side and have it work on both of my sides. I'm probably going to go and hit this edge to inflate it as well, just to inflate a little bit, because when I scaled it down, it probably lost a little bit of that thickness. You want the piece to be as uniformly thick as you can get it to be. All right, Huffgroper saying he has Cura, Mesh Mixer, and Blender available. So when you're talking about keying in order to split something into multiple pieces for multiple parts, I find I do that the most in ZBrush, because other software don't really give you the control to be able to key the way I want. So I'll show you how I go about that. Just a sec. The question was, how do you print something that's larger than the build area? How do you slice and key it up in order to make it fit? So he's asking, the Austin McMaster on Twitch is suggesting the bisecting tool in Mesh Mixer. All right, pause from the sculpting for a second. All right, so say this model is not the size of a kid. Say this is a really big model and we need to split it in multiple pieces. Let me duplicate it. And this is just the model we're looking at. It's kind of hard to show you with this model just because it's so thin. Maybe I'll make something else. Maybe let's go to, actually, let's go to a different model. So this is a model I'm sculpting right now for a client. And say this character is too big. It needs to be printed in multiple pieces and split apart. So simplest thing to do is to split at an existing natural seam. So there's a natural seam right there at the shirt. So what I could do is add a plane in there and say, you know, split. Or simplest solution, let me duplicate this piece, move it down, hide everything else. Actually, no, undo that. I want everything on. I'll merge visible and I'll work on a different scene. There we go. First thing I'll do is Control W to unify all these groups, and I will Dynamesh. Let's see what 128 resolution does. Way too low. Find your resolution first. All right, there we go. 1000 resolution, about 1,000,000 polys. And say I want to split them right at the shirt right there. Few different ways you can do it. Simplest way, switch to your select lasso tool, select the area that you want, and cut away the piece that you don't want. And what you could do once you like the edge that you've got is go to Subtool, duplicate it just to have a backup, Split, Hidden, and you can hide that. And now when you dynamesh the one side, there you've got the top that's kind of dynameshed, and then you've got a bottom that you can also dynamesh. Smooth out and clean that edge. And now you've got the model in two pieces. So now you can export it out as model number 1 and model number 2. So that's one way to do it. That, however, is not keyed, so you're going to have to just hope that you can glue it back together and it works well. A better way is, let's take that piece right there. So now this is still the model that I duplicated, that's one piece. Here's a simpler way that's even faster. I'm going to go to my keys brush, which I created here, aim keys articulation. And if I press M, those are all the different various keys that I've got. And I can say, take something like my tapered square key and draw it out right there. I'm going to rotate it into place. And I could have done a much better job of drawing that in place, but whatever. I'm going to rotate it in place, move it in place. And basically place it somewhat in that area. And I'm going to split unmask points so that it's separate. That way I can do transparency mode and I can see what I'm looking at actually. All right, I'm going to make that key a bit smaller. I'm going to move it into place a bit better. You want to get your key right in the center of your model, and you want to make sure that it's slicing cleanly. You can also rotate and do whatever you need to. But ultimately, you want your Boolean cutter sticking out of the edge. Now, what I can do is dynamesh that piece. 1000 resolution might be too little. Let's make it 2000 there. You don't even have to dynamesh it. That's my habit. And you can set that to be a cutter and go to your Booleans or your render, turn on live Boolean, and it's basically cutting it right there and making it two separate pieces. Especially when all you need to do is go to Boolean, make Boolean mesh, and it's going to calculate from that top piece to that bottom piece, and it's going to cut it and make a new subtool. So give it a second. There it goes. There it is. Okay, and we will go. You can see there's the cut, and if we do auto groups, you can see two separate pieces. And the top is keyed into the bottom. So that's a really simple, easy way to get what you want. And you can print both pieces separately. You can put them back together. And what I use for this is my set of Boolean keys that I made. And this you can do a snap-in pin. You can do a tapered square like I just showed you. There's the Booleans. There's also a hinge, a ball joint, and all of those various different cutters. If you want to find that, let me pull that up again. So that's keys and articulation ZBrush. And I'm going to copy paste the link into the Gumroad chat so you can get it from there. Restream chat so you can get it from there. I believe you're on YouTube. I'm not sure if YouTube actually puts stuff in the comment section from Restream. Oh, there it is, yeah. So if you're on YouTube, you can just kind of click on that right there. ZBrush Live, yeah, you can click on it there. And what is this? This is Twitch? Yeah, Twitch too. So yeah, it's there. You can grab the articulation brush from there. $10. Okay, so back to it. Where's my mask? I've got about 20 minutes left on this stream, so what I want to do is kind of clean up this mask and get there it is. So this is the kit version of the mask that we want to test out. So we're starting from something that's much larger, and we want to make it fittable for kids. So just a smaller back end, but we're keeping all the front end as similar as possible. The really important part is that front piece. And if you ever lose anything, because I got a bit too handsy with the smooth brush, the smooth stronger brush is very strong. What you could do is project from the front. So I'm going to grab just that area, which is maybe I need a bit more. I'm going to grab all of that area. And what I'm going to do is invert and turn both of these pieces on and click project. And now what it's trying to do is copy that information from the model above it, and all that stuff that was really soft and washed out, I have it back. So kind of there. So you can see it going from soft to crisp. So project is pretty powerful. And I think I'll actually keep this on for a second just so I can smooth only the areas that I want to smooth and not everything. I was never expecting that I'd be making masks for a pandemic. Like that never came up in my career thought process. Clink saying I suddenly sound distant and hollow. Let's see. How's my audio, everyone? Can you hear me all right? Slightly garbled. Okay, let's test it out. Give me a second. Let's see what I sound like. Not Twitch. Okay, I'm going to try to get this to go. There we go. How am I sounding on YouTube? Man, it kind of got stuck. Oh boy. No, sounds about the same, dude. So I'm not sure. Maybe it is something on your end. Okay. Yeah, don't worry. I'll get all these technical glitches worked out over the next session. I want to start streaming on Thursdays here in LA, Pacific time, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So I'm going to try to do all my various 3D printing projects that I do at least every week, little bit of ideas to reality. So this month I'll be doing 4 streams, Thursdays, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. If you guys want to tune in. Well, I'll probably do something Black Lives Matter related for the next one, and then after that I'll do more of my fungusaurs. At least that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Okay. I'm liking it, but I'm not loving it. It's just the nature of working with a lot of polys, but I don't want to lower the poly count because I don't want to lose that information in the front. So I'm kind of relying on my smooth, stronger brush to do a good job here. And then coming in again later with the inflate to make sure I have enough thickness. There we go. It's looking nice. I think I'm gonna be able to test print this out and see if it fits anyone. You can Dynamesh also in order to get everything just right. And you often have to Dynamesh just as part of your workflow. Just looking at my previous mask so I can gauge to get a sense of the shape, because we like the shape. What we need to adjust is just the thickness of it. And I'll probably end up doing at least one more project to make sure the details in the front are preserved. Grim Reaper saying, how have you been? I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, man, I've been busy. I've been making the Fungusaurus game that I was telling you all about, building my IP. We're currently looking for funding still to try to make an animated series, an animated short, VR projects, all sorts of lifestyle products. It's cool to try to build something of my own while I'm here in LA. I feel like entertainment capital of the world. Netflix is, I know where their office is. I can go pitch something to them. I should try to put it all together rather than just go and work for DreamWorks or Blizzard or something, you know. I should try to build something of my own. So that's recently what's been occupying me when I'm not, you know, making stuff for a pandemic. But no, things have been good. Just I can't complain. Like compared to so many people who lost their jobs, who are struggling right now, things aren't that bad for me because since I graduated college in 2008, I've been working remotely. I've been working as a freelancer for so long that I know how to do it. A lot of people just simply don't. They've never worked remotely or they're new to all of this. And yeah, it's really hard for a lot of people. And then to compound it all, our current president is just, man, he's so divisive. Like, politics aside, like that man is just not trying to unify anyone. And so it just creates a really, divisive atmosphere, and our political climate is crazy in this country right now. And all the Black Lives Matter movement and the riots and protests, which I feel are very important. I wish I could be out there myself, but given what I'm trying to do with 3D printing supplies and donating, it's like really risky for me to, get COVID, because then I'm done. I can't actually do all this good work that I'm trying to do. I have to take a break for 2 weeks, which actually probably wouldn't be that bad. I should be taking a break. Like I didn't have a quarantine break. Like I don't know if you guys, for some people it's been like a vacation, and I've just been here working. But that's been good. It's been allowed me to keep my sanity. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of a workaholic, so having a project or several projects at a time allows me to keep my sanity. All right, here we go. So we've gone from there, there to there. We basically made a smaller, shrunken down version of the mask with the same front end. So what I'm going to do again is, got some people on here saying, Casual Lyric, hi, I just popped in. What are you making? So I am making a mask. So this is our COVID masks here that, let me pop that one off and that one. So that's a mask prototype that I did and then made a mold, which is a negative of that piece, So there's kind of the front end of the mold, and there's the bottom end. And both of these pieces are used to create soft, flexible silicone masks. So if I can show you, for anyone tuning in right now, this is kind of a soft, flexible silicone mask that I prototyped, all in ZBrush, and then 3D printed out on my Formlabs printers, and then we did two-part casting. There you go. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now, to make a kid's version of this same thing. You can order a mask of your own if you want to support the cause at maskandshield.com. Got another question chat thing. Okay. Comics Legends saying, I don't support the riots at all. Many people have died due to violent riots and set back the original cause. Maybe that's true, maybe not. I feel like a lot of the political dimension of the current climate is, it's very divisive. So it makes you kind of have to pick sides, but you don't have to pick sides. You don't have to be all for, you know, unlimited protests and riots, or unlimited, you know, squashing of those riots and protection of people's property. There is a middle ground. So I feel that's what's important, to keep focus on the cause, because it just, the current system wasn't working for a lot of people. You know, like a lot of black people are unjustly killed. You know, a lot of people are dying. Me being a brown man, I'm actually very well aware of all this, because I've been called terrorist and a bunch of, like, you know, bad stuff over the past 15, 20 years myself, because of what other people did. And so, yeah, the world is just full of a lot of people's anger and emotion right now, and it's important that, you know, when all these people are trying to come out, in America, we have the First Amendment, which is all about protecting freedom of speech. Protest is that speech, and protest is about being inconvenient. It's about saying, no, I'm not going to stand around, I'm not going to wait, I'm not going to let more people die, I'm going to try to do something about it. And if that means getting out there and protesting for days on end, that's free speech. And our current situation is such that the police have become so militarized that they're actively shooting tear gas into peaceful protesters. You know, you've seen the footage of, like, police running their cars into people. You've seen the horses running it over people. You know, indiscriminate use of rubber bullets. And, you know, you look at it from an outside perspective, and you see that the police are so over militarized. They have so much gear that, of course, they're going to use it. You know, like, if you give them that gear, they're going to use that gear. So yeah, it's I think police demilitarization definitely needs to be addressed, and something needs to be done about it. All right, so what I'm going to do now that I've got the shape that I like, I'm going to again Control tap and select just this front area, invert it, turn on my previous piece, and I'm going to project from that top piece to my bottom piece. So again, let's do that. Project all. And that should have done the trick. There we go. So all of that detail is now preserved again. And I'm just going to go in and smooth out the edges. Select all the important stuff that we don't want to lose. A little bit more. There we go. Yeah, comics saying I do support peaceful protests. I mean, that's the challenge of it all right now. When the police is so militarized, and you're trying to protest against police brutality, for the police to be so brutal, that's telling. You know, they're not even holding back even a little bit. They're shoving old people. They're tear gassing kids. They're just being incredibly aggressive. And, you know, unfortunately, police violence is what causes the riots. It's turning peaceful protest into full-blown, you know, ha! My face cam has been covering ZBrush. Thank you for letting me know so late. Okay, there we go. I appreciate that. Okay, so yeah, I feel like, it's hard to talk about the uh, police violence and the riots because some people are just obsessed with looting and the destruction of property, where that's not the issue. That's a very small amount of people, and the thousands upon thousands of people that are out there trying to peacefully protest are being squashed by the police with bullshit curfews and like all this weaponry, this army weaponry that is being used against American citizens. So it's history. It's a historical time. We've never had a president that hasn't been trying to unite people or solve the crisis. He's just coldly saying, no, we've got to shut it down. Yeah, I think police brutality was the catalyst for the violence. And when you start something like that, police ultimately, I feel bad for them in a way because they do have a very small number of people. You can't control once you make things violent. They kind of spin out. All right, there we go. I'm going to smooth that area right there. And looks like we are good with the sizing, at least for now. One thing you can do if you want to smooth just the outside, but you don't want to affect the inside, like I can see is happening if I do that, is I can go into my brush under modifiers, or is it modifiers? I believe it's masking. There we go. And I can hold shift as I press backface mask, and it'll turn on backface masking. Sheesh, my cam's in the way. So again, brush, modifiers, or an auto masking, and then hold shift and click on backface mask. And that's going to allow your smooth to only smooth the parts that you see, not the parts on the back. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Chris Casebolt saying thank you for speaking on the issues and sharing your story. It's all heartbreaking. I'm spending a lot of time educating myself and understanding how things got to where they are. I mean, that's all we can do. That's all I can do. I'm not black. So, the best thing I can do is listen. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to listen. They feel like their voices should be heard all the fucking time. Sorry for cursing. But a lot of people are very entitled. And even if they're not racist, they're entitled. So they feel like their voices should be heard all the time, and when society is in a crisis, when there's a pandemic, you unite to try to help people get through the pandemic. You help nurses, you help doctors. When there's a crisis of faith in the justice system such that black people are being murdered left and right, beaten left and right, you help black people. That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do now. But some people don't think of it like that. Some people think of it that their voice has to be heard all the time, and they get to dissent all the time, and they don't owe anyone anything ever. They never use their platform for anything. And then, they claim not to be racist. What you gonna do? I guess some people are upset that I'm talking about this stuff, but you know what? You don't have to be here. It's not a platform to talk politics necessarily. It's a platform to talk about whatever you want to talk about as you sculpt. And it's hard because there is no proper place or time to talk about uncomfortable issues, and it's such a prevalent issue that at least I'm going to talk about it wherever I can. I'm actually pretty proud of Pixologic ZBrush for blacking out their social media on Black Tuesday as well to Blackout Tuesday in order to support the cause. All right, there we go. Let me just double check. going back and forth to my previous one to make sure that all that detail in the front is being preserved, and it is. And now we've got a smaller version of the mask that should be kid-friendly. And there's no way to know until we actually print, prototype, and test it. So that's what we're going to have to do. But last step, in the next couple of minutes, I can add these straps. So I'm going to add these straps by moving them into place. And plop. All right, there we go. Invert that, and I'm going to rotate into place. And what you want to do now is probably split unmasked points so they're separate, the top and the bottom, so you can use your clip brushes with ease. So I'm going to go to my clip brush, just try to clip that away. And there all the detail gets clipped away. I can even kind of push it in a bit and pull this part in a bit as well. There we go. There we go. All right, cool. And once I dynamesh that in, it's going to fully lock it in place. And now it's the right width and height for the elastic good to go through it. Okay, so we'll do the same for the bottom. I'm going to go to my clip curve brush with the bottom piece selected and clip all that away. Use my clay brush to push that detail in a bit. Did I push it too far? No, I did not. This will be a bit trickier. And maybe I'll just move the whole thing in a bit somehow. Well, let's try clipping again. Try clipping that piece. Whoa, let's set it off. Just pushing that in, making sure it doesn't pop out of the other end. And that's looking right, but it's hard to say because if we're especially if we're trying to make it easy to make mechanically, it's tough when the piece is pointing downward like that. So maybe the best bet is to actually undo a bit and position it such that it is more aligned. Nah, that won't work. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's the thing about prototyping is you have to think about all these things and try to make something complex work. And it takes time. It just takes iteration. It takes weeks of testing, which is why you can't respond super quickly. But 3D printing and knowing 3D modeling, especially sculpting applications like ZBrush, has made it a lot easier than it ever was to prototype. I remember when something like this would take months, if not longer. So the thing to remember is that I'm not special for being able to do this. Anyone can learn this, and you can probably do it better than I can if you dedicate yourself to it. So definitely worth it. If you feel strongly about something and you want to make something, now's the time to make anything you possibly can want to make. There we go. So I'm going to merge these pieces down onto each other. Merge down, merge down. I'll duplicate it so I have a backup. And I will dynamesh so that these pieces become joined together. There we go. There we go. And there we go. Get rid of any unnecessary extraneous detail. There we go. Cool. with the back face masking on, it's kind of hard to smooth sometimes. So you got to be a bit more careful. All right, it is 4 o'clock. So guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to be signing off shortly. We'll continue this project. I'll print this out, and we will make the kids version of the soft elastic mask and see if we can get it working. I'm gonna start doing my goodbye spiel, which is if you want to follow my work, you can at Aiman Akhtar 3D on Instagram, or follow Fungusaurs on Instagram. Once again, if you want to learn what I teach, you can take my class on Mold 3D Academy. It's all online, and you can always reach me to ask any questions. Self-paced 8 weeks. I'll drop that in the chat box as well. And quick announcement, ZBrush just released ZBrush 2020. There's a whole bunch of new features. I'm not going over yet because I haven't downloaded it yet. I just saw the announcement yesterday. So there's a lot more new stuff to try, and ZBrush is an awesome company that is always doing right by its users. So this one I should try, the wall thickness measure. That'll just come in super handy right now for this mask. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll figure out the technical difficulties and be a bit better next time. Tune in again next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll do more 3D printing ideas to reality. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, cheers.